Hey, I hope y'all preparing for a great Thanksgiving. I'm in the middle of making some sweet potato pie right now. But in the midst of preparing some food for the fam, I was alerted that Drake is filing a second lawsuit against not Kendrick Lamar, but UMG for defamation. Now, I haven't read through the documents of the second suit the way I have with the first, but the premise of the second suit is essentially defamation, claiming UMG had an opportunity to halt the release of Not Like Us. And as a result of UMG not halting this record, it's allegedly caused Drake irreparable damage. Damage to his reputation, and I'm assuming damage to his business. Now, I don't doubt that Drake has received irreparable damage to his reputation. I'm gonna tell you why. Y'all remember when we was kids and all over the place, you would see people making jokes about a guy like R. Kelly. Now, R. Kelly's situation ended up being much more true than a lot of the jokes let on when we were children. Even as kids, we recognized that it was not socially acceptable to be in the same room with R. Kelly unless you wanted to be violated. And with the spread of a record like Not Like Us, with its virality, with how crazy it's gone, the way people talk about Drake, the conversations that his name is included in, I see a bit of a parallel with the way that we used to talk about R. Kelly when I was a kid. Now, I'm no one to say that there won't be a major Drake case later talking about the people that he's endangered 10 to 15 years from now. Though there are some alarming examples, nothing concrete enough to put him in court from what I've seen so far. And in the event that this did cause any significant loss of business, I'd be interested to know how. Companies and businesses are generally pretty slow to react to social issues, not generally making an uproar unless the public makes an uproar. And the way that people have been consuming a record like Not Like Us hasn't been this very concentrated effort to stop or prevent Drake's music from progressing or being played anywhere. To my knowledge, he hasn't been dropped from any of his previous business ventures or badmouthed by any of the professionals that used to work with him or co-sign him. In the same way that when people used to joke about R. Kelly, it didn't seem to have any tangible effect on his business ventures. R. Kelly was on RCA for the entirety of his solo career up until his allegations were put in a documentary. Unless Drake's accusations began to develop some traction and some steam and there's a doc made or victims begin to come forward, that would be the thing that I would assume would end business relationships. But as I said, corporations and businesses are generally never the leaders in moral conversation. They're generally slow to react. So I don't doubt that Drake's reputation has received irreparable damage as a result of him feuding with Kendrick Lamar over the last few months. I guess the issue that I'm having is how UMG ends up being responsible for the defamation when Kendrick is the person that said those things. Now, if I'm to assume that Drake is making sense here, this all hinges on whether or not Drake has proof of UMG conspiring with Spotify in order to boost the overall virality of a record like Not Like Us. If that isn't how it works, I don't see a world where UMG would be responsible for defamation against Drake. Defamation in itself is already extremely hard to prove, especially if you're looking for compensation in any form. The other perspective that I'm looking at this from is whether or not he wanted UMG to basically censor Kendrick Lamar's song, because that's essentially what he'd be asking for if this lawsuit were to go through, he were to win. Would this become like the new precedence for music artists going forward dealing with their distribution companies? Oh, if somebody who's working with the same distro as me says something about me, they have to sift through the records and say whether or not they can say it because I am or am not a major cash cow for the distribution. And if that was Drake's expectation, for them to ultimately mute, neuter, or censor what it is that Kendrick Lamar had to say on Not Like Us, does that mean that he's been feeding into this favoritism thing that we've been talking about he's been getting since 2018, or basically since the infancy of his career? But I'm still confused on what Drake expected UMG to do when they heard Not Like Us. It very much so reads to me like he expected them to be like, nah, he can't say that about Drake, that's our guy. Again, refer back to my original point. If UMG is found to have been doing anything behind the scenes to inflate the popularity or numbers behind Not Like Us, that's the only realm of possibility where I see a defamation suit against UMG actually working. Unfortunately, that would open up the door for Kendrick to be able to do the same thing. Because if Drake is allowed to say that Not Like Us should have been censored, what's to stop Kendrick Lamar from saying that, why didn't UMG stop the release of Push-Ups, a track where Drake accuses Kendrick Lamar's wife of sleeping around with their bodyguard? What's to stop him from going after a track like Family Matters, where you allege that he beat his wife, isn't the true father of his son? Keep in mind, these records were released before Not Like Us. So if they're to entertain the idea that they should have stepped in when they heard heard Not Like Us, do people expect UMG to not hold up the same standards for the records that Drake dropped first? This has been one of the most complicated things to entertain because from a social perspective, we all understand who lost this rap battle, but from a legal perspective, I don't know what angle Drake is trying to come at this from. And even in the possibility of him winning, him not looking like someone who's also benefited from the exact same things that he's accusing UMG of giving to Kendrick in this scenario. In the last video that was posted to this channel about the lawsuit, we went over Drake's preferential treatment when it came to Spotify. I don't see a world where this gets exposed, Drake not fall with it, thereby nullifying the same victimhood that he wants to seek refuge in as a result of his loss to Kendrick Lamar. Because socially speaking, and even business-wise, why would anybody look at Drake as the victim to the same thing that he benefited from? I also hate this narrative that Drake is now some war hero that's fighting the good fight for the people or for the smaller acts out there, when this would not have happened without Not Like Us being what it was, going as viral as it did. This isn't for the people. This isn't for young artists that are coming up. This isn't for smaller acts when he's been the exact same Bigfoot that has stomped on every piece of would-be competition because of their smaller size due to him being a cash cow on UMG. Some of y'all have to stop repainting this as that. This only happened as a result of him losing this back and forth. I do agree that I think he has a case, but not without also being exposed. Inflation is something that I feel like is just an industry practice, is an industry standard, and all big artists benefit from it. Not just Drake, but including Drake. And reads to me like the biggest if I go down, then we all go down, if he has evidence substantiating his allegation. This accusation that I'm seeing from Drake's legal team asserts that UMG could have refused to release or distribute the song or required the offending material to be edited and or removed, but UMG chose to do the opposite. UMG designed, financed, and then executed a plan to turn Not Like Us into a viral mega hit with the intent of using the spectacle of harm to Drake and his business to drive consumer hysteria and, of course, massive revenues. The plan succeeded, likely beyond UMG's wildest expectations. The thing that's confusing me about that is, once a record is released and it starts going and having the traction that a record like Not Like Us has, is the label that it's under supposed to not back it? Even in a world where I'm entertaining UMG being exposed for inflating Not Like Us, I don't think that changes the social perspective of the record at all. Everywhere it's been played, everywhere I've heard it, this is probably the most confusing time in rap history because I genuinely have no idea what one of the biggest megastars on the planet has in his mind. I'm welcoming the OVO ovulators to explain this one to me in a way that isn't too conspiratorial for me to feed into it. Don't misconstrue this as me bootlicking UMG either. I hate them niggas. And even if this suit is unjustifiable, I 100% think that the preferential treatment that I believe that a lot of these larger artists have been receiving for years now should have come into question. For niggas to expect me to believe that Drake is somehow the hero of that story, I'm not believing that in the slightest. This is also hilariously the only time that Drake fans don't require evidence before they believe an accusation. But as I said before, if there is evidence and Drake and his team can provide that, provide it. Outside of that, I genuinely have no idea what bro is doing and think that this is one of the worst moves in his entire career. We'll see where it goes.